Well, hopefully you're looking at a screen that says Cincinnati, Ohio to Lexington, Kentucky on the CNO&TP.
Looks great.
Okay, there we are with a lantern. Notice on the bottom it says CNO&TP, and on the globe it says Q and C. In 1880, Cincinnati built the Cincinnati Southern, south from Cincinnati to Chattanooga, Tennessee. They operated for 2 years, leased it to Cincinnati, New Orleans, and Texas Pacific in 1882. And unfortunately, last year they sold it all to Norfolk Southern. Here's a stock certificate that one of you lucky people out there own. And we'll start this off with, they were a long, gleaming steel thing that came roaring in on flying wheels and a terrifying blast of horns, and thousands of people pushed and shoved to ride on them. Passenger trains. We'll start at Cincinnati's, work our way south. We're going to take the Royal Palm down to Florida. We're even going to take our car on board. Amtrak taking your car with them on the auto train is nothing new, except they moved everything in boxcars back in those days. What the heck? We are going to use our company pass. Jason Rouse, stock clerk to DSK, whatever that was, in Ludlow, Kentucky. Our car cleaners are cleaning our cars. And we're going to be doing the red, which was the CNO&TP. The green was Southern Railway in Kentucky. The CNO&TP, although it was used by the Southern, was a separate corporation until last year when Cincinnati sold it. I always thought it was interesting when you were out with officials from the Southern Railroad and they were anywhere on the red line, they introduced themselves as working for the CNO&TP. They were up on the green section, they said they were Southern Railway. We're going to look here at a map. Hopefully my cursor you can see. Coming across the river here on the blue is the CNO&TP through Ludlow, coming up Erlanger Hill. Give you another little connection. This is the CNO and L&N coming over the L&N Bridge. And swinging out this way is the CNO going to Ashland. We're over in Cincinnati. Here's the old CNO&TP yard, which was done away with to put in Cincinnati Union Terminal, the bridge going across the river. Another view thereof. Before Union Terminal was built, there was a number of passenger stations in town. And this is Central Union Passenger Station, which the Southern used. The CNO had their own station up here, and the Louisville, Nashville, and Pennsylvania Railroad used this station over here. There was also a Southern L&N produce market station here. This was the Central Station in Cincinnati at 3rd and Elm Street. Paul Brown Stadium's back there. This is a parking lot down here. If you go down and look up, you can see part of this wall still supporting 3rd Street. So there's still a little remnant of the old Central Station left. An aerial view coming down on what was the produce market. This is all now Great American Ballpark and Paul Brown Stadium down this neck of the woods. This is the reason why they moved out. It flooded every year. So they moved up and built on the high ground, although the high ground did flood in the 37th flood, to Central Union, Cincinnati Union Terminal. Sorry. We're looking down on Cincinnati Union Terminal, Rotunda, the concourses which the trains pulled into, the concourse that led you out, Tar A, here where they controlled all the switches that led in. Cincinnati Railroad Club used to be up here, and we're now down here. Modern view looking down. on it. You notice the concourse coming out has been truncated. This is now the Omni Theater. Car A still here. This is Guest Street Yard. Since you people are all from the Cincinnati area, you know Guest is spelled G-E-S-T, right? Not G-U-E-S-S. As I see every once in a while from a Norfolk Southern publication, they call their Guest Street Yard Guest. No, it's G-E-S-T. Anyway, a view of Cincinnati Union Terminal and a modern day view of the terminal, now Museum Center. And the end sides here was where the streetcars were supposed to come in and the taxi cabs come in. A view into the rotunda. Ticket offices over here, baggage over here, and these were also small stores, newsstands and that. A view back along the concourse. Ticket side. Back in the concourse. These mosaics on the side were all saved. They went out to Greater Cincinnati Airport, and now they're at the Cincinnati Convention Center. The larger mosaic back here was not saved, unfortunately. This is a view into it today. It's the ticket sales counter for OmniMax and the History Center and that. A view, I guess it was about 4 years ago, they cleaned the mosaics and that in here. Beautiful, beautiful. If you've not been over there, you need to go over and take the tour. They have tours once or twice a day of the terminal facility. Well worth doing. Another view thereof. Okay, we've gone down onto the concourse, and we're going to take our Southern Railroad train back. 2 F units hooked up. Well, we have 3 F units, I should say. The first 2 are hooked up elephant style. And we got this one back here. And sitting over here is a Louisville and Nashville train getting ready. And over here we got the Chesapeake and Ohio, the George Washington getting ready to pull. The conductor is walking us on board the train. The dining car is ready to service. And we're up at the Incline House, which is a nice little restaurant looking down. I know it's a little bad, the picture is. Sorry about this. The train here is CNO&TP. They're both stacked trains. And on the back side of it is the CSX train. They're both heading down this way. The CNO&TP train will go over the bridge into Ludlow. The other train will swing over and swing into the bridge in Covington. I put this picture in. It's Norfolk Southern locomotive, but look what it says underneath the cabin reporting mark. CNO&TP. Southern boxcar. But we look up here in the corner and it says CNO&TP. So there, it's a real railroad. This is Guest Street Yard from A Street looking back in. It's not a hump tower, it's the yard tower. We're leaving and we're coming out over the bridge, cut back here. One day you could walk across here. Yes. And nowadays it's all shut down due to Homeland Security stuff. Anyway, this is a view back in 1890 of the bridge across the river, Cincinnati Southern Bridge. This is Ludlow down here. They had a public landing. There was a rail yard down here and a walkway. And the Ohio River Channel came along the Kentucky shore. Another view of the yard down here. And we got a swing bridge here to allow steamboats to pass underneath the bridge during high water. This is that area down there in Ludlow now. Never know that there was a rail yard down there or a public landing. And of course, they replaced the bridge in the 1910 with a bigger bridge. Once again, a view of the swing bridge. And it still stands there, except it's not connected to the present day bridge. But the pillar is still there. We're up at the Incline House again, looking back down at the bridge going across the river. There's our pillar there that's no longer connected. Down here was the Baltimore and Ohio, now CSX, and New York Central, now Louisville and Indiana. And that's a Louisville and Indiana train coming through. It'll duck underneath the, I guess that's 8th Street. No, that isn't 8th Street. River Road, and swing up to the yard up here. Coming across here and down here is the Brent Spence with the CNO bridge back here. I still call it the CNO bridge. Sorry about that. We're going to lovely Ludlow. Coming across the river into Ludlow. CNO&TP had a large yard here. All their service of the CNO&TP locomotives and car was done here. Pullman had a shop here. And all the trains that came in on the other lines, New York Central, Baltimore and Ohio, Chesapeake and Ohio, Louisville and Nashville, Southern, Norfolk Western, and Pennsylvania, all their cars, when they needed service, was taken over here to Ludlow, be serviced in the yard. And of course, here is Ludlow Lagoon back in here, and Silver Lake out in Erlanger. Our steam train coming over the bridge into Ludlow. A more modern picture of a train coming over. And I was down there last year, and this is a picture of the train coming over. A view back at the bridge, and I know some of you saying, why aren't they painting that bridge? Well, the railroads have learned when they paint the bridge, the city fathers are happy, and the tax assessors are even more happy because they will raise the property tax on the bridge. So as long as the Federal Railroad Administration says the bridge is safe, the railroads aren't going to touch it. Sorry about that. There's our Ludlow Depot, the bridge over here. We're standing where the depot stood, looking back at what the yard looks like today. There's a picture from the hill down in. The shops over here, the roundhouse here, the water towers, the coaling station, the sand towers back here, the shops here for repairing the freight cars. Off of a Sanborn map showing the roundhouse and that. Picture of a locomotive in there. Notice the hills are bare. There's no trees on the hill. I keep telling people trees are a modern invention in Kentucky. You look at all pictures back at the beginning of the 20th century up through 1940 or 1950, there's no trees on the hill. They're barren. A picture back in the yard with the coaling tower back in there. Every 40 to 50 miles, you had to coal these locomotives and put water in them. Not like a diesel. You fill them up and you run them a 400 or 500 miles before you got to refuel. These guys had to be refueled every 40 to 50 miles. There's our locomotive being serviced. Notice the water tower here and the standpipe coming out. Of course, we got diesels and we don't have to do that anymore. There's our diesel in there, and there is one of the facilities there in the yard. We're looking over at the roundhouse. This is all that's left of it. That building that we just looked at, they filled in around it. By the way, this is where the turntable was. And they have, deeded this to the city of Ludlow, and the city of Ludlow is going to turn it into some railroad museum. Not sure exactly what. Looking back in, this is where the coaling tower was, the water tanks. These are the sand towers, sand, S-A-N-D. You put sand in the locomotive because they would put them down in front of the driving wheels to give them traction when the rails were wet. And over here in back of the tires is where the Pullman yard was. City of Ludlow's put in this nice viewing platform. The caboose came from Junction City, Kentucky. It has an elevator in there to get up there too. A view from it. I wish they cut some trees down to the left so you get a good view of the bridge. But apparently that isn't going to happen for some time. Coming up Erlanger Hill, named for Baron Erlanger, who was the financier who sold the bonds so the city of Cincinnati could build the Cincinnati Southern, CNO&TP. Oh, I never said CNO&TP, Cincinnati, New Orleans, and Texas Pacific. That's what it stood for. From the Ludlow Lagoon Park, looking back at Erlanger Hill, there's a view of the trestle going up. I worked a number of excursion trains, and we came down there one time, and I was working the refreshment car and the baggage car. The door was open. There was a barrier across. I leaned down and looked down. That thing is 5,000 feet high. I know it's not that high, but it was scary looking down. A train going up the hill. We're down on Sleepy Hollow Road. With all the trees, you can't get a picture of it anymore. Except if you go over to Mount Echo Park in Cincinnati and shoot over. We got auto racks coming down the hill. I assume this is filled with Ford products from Louisville, Kentucky. Got a freight going up the hill. It most probably has a pusher at the end to help it up. Passenger trains would put an extra engine on the front to get it up Erlanger Hill. They would cut off the extra engine up at the Erlanger at the yard up there. This is a rainy day with a double stack train, a stack train coming up the hill with its containers. Crescent Springs, halfway up the hill. There's the Crescent Spring Depot. I like it. The ladies have all got long skirts on. The young girls have got skirts on that hit their knees. The men all have their bowler hats on. Another view of the depot. The CR up there, that's the calling of the depot. If you used a telegraph, you send it to CR. Didn't have to spell it all out. Train coming up the hill, getting there. We have telltales here. These were ropes that hung down because you got brakemen riding on top of the car and you got it coming up on a bridge or something. You want them to, they're looking the wrong way. We don't want them to be killed. One of the major way that guys were killed working on the railroad, I say guys, because they were all men back in those days. In the first 2 decades of the 20th century were men, brakemen riding up here being hit by overhead obstructions. This is where the depot was located. Nothing there except that little steel bungalow. We're going to go on up the hill to Erlanger. At Erlanger, another view thereof. I guess they're all going to be going over Cincinnati to a Reds game. I assume that's why they're all there. And a view of it today. Used to be a museum in there. The museum's been removed, and they've turned it into a community center. We got a Norfolk Southern locomotive with a Union Pacific locomotive heading downhill. You often see different railroad locomotives. They're being used as run-through. Don't switch them out, just run them through, and you base on the number of hours that they ran. There's a counter that counts the hours, and you do charges that way. I threw this in because all the county seats all had fairgrounds. There was one up at Erlanger, horse racing, constant things going on, a constant source of revenue on Sundays. Dixie Highway. I think this is neat. This is Dixie Highway in 1920 on grade crossing of the CNO&TP. And there it is today. 4-lane highway ducking under. Ellesmere, we've moved out a little bit farther. Still in Kenton County, though. The Ellesmere Depot. The bridge in the background is maintained and built by the railroads. The railroads had a rough life. They had to build the depot. They built the depot and then they're taxed for it. They lay the rails in and they're taxed for the rail. The city and the county and the state won't build bridges. The railroad has to build the bridge and then they'll get a real estate tax on the bridge. The railroads got a rough life back in those days. A view from up on the present bridge built by the state looking back down. That is a heritage unit. The Norfolk Southern and CSX Transportation have all painted a locomotive in the colors of one of the former railroads that were merged in to form their lines. Both the New York Central was divided between the two railroads. So both Norfolk Southern and CSX has a New York Central locomotive. There is the bridge over the Q&C Railroad at Erlanger. So I said this was built by the railroads, maintained by the railroads. There are a few of these still left in Kentucky over the L&N and the Q&C. Down to Devon. The bunch of ladies in white dresses, it must be summertime. Although there's a few in black dresses. 3 gentlemen, they must be really dudes because look at all those girls around them, plus 2 in the depot laying out the window. There it is today, a wide spot along the railroad tracks. And we got a unit train of covered hoppers going through. I assume they're loaded with grain going somewhere. Richwood. Now, one of the problems I have in taking these pictures is there's been a lot of construction done, and you can't find what was there then. We're down at Richwood. There is the depot. Notice the RW, which is their call signals. We got the derrick crane there for lifting things for less than carload goods. Everything was shipped by box cars up through the 1950s. Daily published in newspapers with the number of box cars loaded in the United States. That gave you the economic health of the country. Notice the milk cans on the ground, the cream cans. Another view with all the cream cans lined up. They're put in the shade. They're normally on the north side of the building, out of the sunlight, or on the west side, because they're picked up in the morning, put on the train, and taken to the dairy. This is the best I can do, completely rebuilt here. 2 4-lane highways, crazy interchange going through. Not only was there's now a spur in leading back to an industry, but this is basically where it was. Kensington, our next stop down the track. We're still up in Boone County. There's our depot. On the left, it's got the distance to Ludlow. On the right, the distance to Chattanooga. We got sitting here on the track, a trackman's vocal error to go out and inspect the track. There it is today. A wide spot next to the railroad tracks. Aha! This picture always bothered me. Where was this at Walton? Well, we're back here. If you cross that railroad tracks, this is what you see. Yes, the pond was there. It's not at Walton. You can't trust postcards. Postcards may be a picture of the place they say, or it may be a place of somewhere else that they say. There's a nice picture of the CNO Bridge in Cincinnati, except it's the Louisville-Nashville Bridge. Sorry, it's just the way they work. While I'm mentioning this, there are no colored photographs. Anyway, all of the pictures taken back in those days are black and whites. They're sent to Germany with some notations on it, and some artist in Germany paints the picture, the postcard. So don't go try matching the colors. We're down to Walton, where the Louisville and Nashville comes in, the short line. It's called the short line because the original railroad ran from Covington to Lexington to Frankfort to Louisville. In 1870, built the short line, which ran from Louisville to LaGrange to, my mind just shut down, to Verona, up to Walton and up. It was called the short line, of course, because it was a shorter route than going from Louisville to Lexington and back up. It ducks underneath the CNO&TP. Here we are. Cincinnati Southern CNOP running south, Louisville and Nashville coming across, and I pull my car and park it there to get this picture. Of course, you got to sit and wait a while to wait for a train to come up. People in Kentucky are friendly. I got my flashers on. I got a wife who's screaming we're going to be killed, and they're stopping to ask me if I need help. I have met a lot of nice people parked by the side of the railroad track with my flashers on who stop and make sure I'm okay. Neat part about rail fanning in Kentucky. By the way, we are not train spotters, as the people on the television keep saying. Train spotters live in England. Rail fans live in the United States, okay? Another view down of the short line Louisville, Nashville, now CSX coming across, and the Norfolk Southern CNO&TP up there. A view of Walton, just to let you know what Walton looked like. Our station in Walton, Q&C. Another view with the milk cans tucked on the side in the shade. Our derrick back here. And this up here is a train order board. Sometimes the orders are handed up as the train rolls through, and other times the train's got to stop. The conductor's got to get off and sign a book that he got the order. Another view thereof. Milk cans tucked down here. There was a morning train that ran every day from Lexington up that stopped at every depot picking up the milk cans, and another train that ran at night taking the empty cans down, dropping them off, stopping at every depot. The milk run. And here is a train running past where the depot was at Walton. Ratchet, our next stop. We've now cut over into Kenton County again. Our depot. Train order board here. Whitewashed here because there's no lights. That will help you see at night and you don't walk into them. Another view. Their call sign is BT. And, whoa, look at this. We got a mail pickup here to pick up the mail on the fly. They will throw the bag over the ground and they will snatch the mail off the mail pickup. Station tender's house. Notice we're 314 miles from Chattanooga, 20 from Ludlow. Roughly every 10 miles, there were houses like this, section houses, I should say. And there'd be one or two of these here. And they were responsible for every day, I don't care what the weather's like, every day going out and walking the track with a hammer and a pick to make sure that the spikes were all driven in, and a large wrench to make sure that your bolts down here holding your 39-foot section rails together. You know, nowadays we got ribbon rail. It's quarter-mile sections that are welded to each other, so you don't have the clickety-clack anymore like you had up through the 1980s when ribbon rail really took off. Here's the view of the site today. Nothing there. Crittenden will be our next stop. We're now over in Grant County. By the way, I want to point out this windy thing coming down here is Dixie Highway. Dixie Highway now all runs over here. There's been so much construction going on in areas along here, it's very hard to match stuff up. Central traffic controls going in. They're going to do away with stopping at the depots to pick up orders. A guy in Cincinnati is going to be sitting with his control board and is going to move this. These are semaphore lights. And if it's up, means you can go. If it's halfway down, slow down, cross, you got to stop. If halfway across, it generally means the next place you may have to stop. So they put in central traffic control, and that's one of the reasons why these depots all began to disappear, because you didn't have to have people there 24 hours a day to hand up train orders. But there is our Crittenden depot. Another view up, milk cans lined up to be loaded on board. Our derrick for loading and offloading. I never noticed that CNO&TP back here. And this is an automobile car for moving automobiles. A quick little story. I don't know if any of you remember driving over 8th Street in Cincinnati, driving towards Price Hill. And as you got over near Price Hill to State Street, there were two old boxcars that sat there for years upon years upon years. They were finally sold, and the guy opened them. And there were 1937 Dodges sitting in them. Somehow they got lost along the way. Anyway, here's our milk cans sitting there. Another view, the man just moved around with our milk cans sitting there. This is the side of the station. Nothing there but a big gravel yard. And we got a unit coal train moving south, empty. Sherman is our next stop. Our depot at Sherman. A warning sign telling you if you're on the side of the car, you aren't going to clear the depot, you're going to be scraped off. Looks like we got a farmer standing here. We got somebody doing business with the station agent. General store up here. Our loading platform back there. Our two-wheeler and our freight express office there. A view of the site today. Our switch still coming off. They just done a tie replacement program along the way. If you're lucky, a tie will last 40 years. Generally on the main line, they pull them after 20 years. And these things cost anywhere between 60 and $100 each. Very expensive. Dry Ridge, our next stop. Aha, Carlsbad Sanitarium. This was a major site. I wish I could find an article on it. What went on down there? There's all kind of postcard pictures of it. There's one famous postcard that shows a guy arriving in a wheelchair, and 7 days later, he's a young athlete ready to get out and run football. They cured him. Another view of the place. There's a whole series of postcards. They had the Carlsbad water, which was bottled and sold. I don't know throughout the United States, but at least throughout the greater Cincinnati area. Here's a picture of our depot at Dry Ridge. Warning, the platform will not clear a man on the side of the car. We've seen that before. We got an L&N boxcar here. Everything is, shouldn't say it, almost everything's shipped in barrels because forklifts have not been invented yet. So you can take a barrel, put it on the side and roll it. China and find glassware shipped in these, filled with straw. I wonder if those are bourbon barrels. And anyway, here we've got some boxes here with cuts in the side so somebody can pick them up and move them. And our train order board there. Another view thereof, maintenance away cart here. This is a high switch here. And here's our switch stand coming up. Never seen one really that high, but for some reason it's there. And here we got a Norfolk Southern train heading by where the station used to be. Still a siding coming in, but it's got a derailer setting here. A derailer sets on the rail, so if anything comes down, it will go on the ground, or rolling out onto the main line, it'll go on the ground. Williamsburg. Well, I got Williamsburg in and we're Williamstown. Good Lord, I did that. I did the same thing as the federal government did 40 years ago. We were having a meeting in Williamstown and they went to Williamsburg and we were up in Williamstown and couldn't figure out why they weren't showing up. And I just did the same darn thing and I need to make that change. Sorry about that. By the way, we got a Y here at Williamstown. W-Y-E, Y. The train comes in like this, backs up on this, and it's now facing that way. I had an editor change everything in a book I wrote from W-Y-E to W-H-Y. I had a hard time convincing the editor that there was an actual word W-Y-E. Anyway, we finally got it squared away. There is the depot. This was a very common thing. The cattle chute for loading cattle or sheep or pigs. Notice our milk cans back here. Our wagons for unloading the baggage car, Railway Express Agency, moving goods, the UPS, the FedEx of its day, or the Amazon of its day. Another view with the omnibus there. Sorry, it's a bad picture. Stockyard back there. The depot was located about a mile from the courthouse, so the omnibus would take you to the depot, to downtown, or bring you out to the depot. Another view thereof, a modern day view. This is where the depot sat. There's our train coming through. Yeah, I'm on railroad property, but what the heck? I own a couple shares of NS stock, so I'm not trespassing, right? Correct. My wife isn't too happy where I take the car, but we got a Tahoe, four-wheel drive. Take a Tahoe anywhere you want to take it. Right, right. Thank you for agreeing with me. I have been unable to figure out where this coal loading dock was. But as I said, every 40 to 50 miles, you have to refuel the locomotive with coal and water. Williamstown is the logical place to do this. But where this was located at, I can't quite figure out. I put this in for creamery because almost all the county seats in Kentucky had a creamery. That's where you take your raw milk and convert it into milk, cream, or whatever. This is a can of milk. Tri-State Butter, located on Butler Street in Cincinnati. The can number 7024. It belongs to Martha Maxby of Wilmore, Kentucky. So, and it's to be shipped by the Q&C. So we got everything we need to know on this. So we take it down the Q&C depot. It comes up, we know it's to be delivered to Tri-State. They know 7024's signed to Martha. They weigh the can, they pour the milk out, they reweigh the can, and they write down in the book the amount of milk that was poured. And they will ship it back to Wilmore, Kentucky by the Q&C. By the way, have you ever noticed the top of the milk can's got a depression in it with a thing to pick it up? That was also to put ice in during summertime to keep it cool. Mason is our next stop. Coming on down. I meant to mention all this stuff about what's nearby. There's our depot, MY being its call. Another view, once again, milk cans. And our derrick, LCL, less than carload. LCL is now moved by trucks. You look at those containers on board trains or the truck trailers on the train, trailers on flat car, TOFC, and most of them are moving less than carload goods. And here's our site today, an open spot next to Dixie Highway over here. And there's our signals back there. The track has been moved from double track to single track with passing sidings. So you will come across double track, single track, and this is your control for letting it in. And yeah, where NS moved their, it was at Somerset, but they moved it somewhere else. CSX controls all its signals from Jacksonville, Florida. Amazing what you can do with computers. Blanchett, coming on down. Right about here. There's our depot with our station agent standing in the window. A view of the depot with our derrick sitting there. Train order board here. Our protection sign. I'm assuming there's a cattle guard going across here where it's metal rods sitting in the ground so that if any cattle come down here, they won't be able to cross. And I assume you got to go all the way over here for the outhouse. Necessity. Blanchett, your B's their call, 43.6 miles from Ludlow, 291.4 miles to Chattanooga. We got our train stopped there. I'm assuming this is the assistant conductor, our Pullman car man, and the trainman who walks back a mile if the train stops where it's not supposed to stop, waving a red flag and a fuse. This is a monkey tail. It's got a whistle up here. It's a very sharp, piercing whistle. I've operated them. You're doing a backup move. You come to a crossing. Two longs, a short, and a long. Throughout the world, that's a sign you're hitting a crossing. And this is our name of our train at Carolina Special. And the site today. Near Blanchett is still one active bridge. And I understand, though, the county now operates it. Corinth, almost on the Harrison County line. A view of Corinth in its glory days. A train coming northbound. We got a southbound train heading through. I've sort of wondered if this isn't a World War I troop train, and that's a kitchen car in there. I don't know. Our depot here. Go to Corinth, our stockyard here. Another view thereof. And another view. Little girl hanging out at the depot. I hung out at the Newport Depot when I was a kid. Hey, 5, 6 years old. Mom's wondering where I am. I've wandered a half mile down to the depot. Things were different back then. Downtown Corinth today. Masonic Temple is abandoned and all the stores are abandoned. We're looking south and the train went this way. In 1950, the city of Cincinnati issued a bond issue to rebuild the line. They built the line cheap in the 1880s. They're now rebuilding it for a modern railroad. This is the cut they put in here. They daylighted tunnels on south of here. Daylight tunnels, you take the roof off the tunnel. So there is no tunnel anymore. They bypassed tunnels. They did major construction. They paid it off in the year 2000, I believe. It's a 50-year bond issue. 2000 or 2001, it got paid off. Hinton's our next stop. We've now crossed over into Harrison County. There's our depot. And there it is today, a wide spot, an abandoned general store back here. Sadieville, poor Sadieville, great town on the railroad. They built US 25 out here, and they built I-75 way over here, and nobody goes to Sadieville anymore, except rail fans like me. I love this. A Cincinnati Southern rail town, a historic Cincinnati Southern rail town, 1880, was founded by the railroad. A view of the school's no longer there, but Schoolhouse Road is there. Looking up the road, Sadieville sort of looks like this today. There's the stockyard, there's the depot. There's a view of the depot close up. We parked up here, and this gentleman comes out from the house and asked if we were okay. And I said, yeah, my wife goes with me now. Back in 2022, I fell down the hillside where I shouldn't have been with nobody with me, with my phone up in the car. I crawled out, got back home to the hospital, 3 broken ribs. This, at your age, it won't heal. And then about 4 months later, when I was sort of healed, I fell down another hillside and banged up my left shoulder and arm. And my wife said, when I go out rail fanning, she goes with me to make sure I do things right. Anyway, the guy came out. I told him, no, I was waiting for a train. He said, well, there should be one here in about 20, 30 minutes. It was below freezing. Offered my wife to come up to the house, sit with his wife till the train came. And she said, no, she had to stay with me. So anyway, coils, steel coils here on the train. There's the depot. It was moved, and there it is today. We turn around from the depot, and they got this painted on the wall. Notice CNO&TP on the locomotive. They got this Southern Depot here. There's a little museum in it. It's never been opened when I've been there. Rogers Gap, completely rebuilt through here. No connection to what it was. There's the depot that was there. The scale for weighing the stuff you were going to ship, less than carload. It ain't there anymore, people. They dug a trench through there, and they were putting in new ties. I came back later, and they put the new ties in. Not only put the new ties in, they put down new bows down the whole line. You need the bows because the train presses down on this, and it allows some give and shove. If this was solid, you would soon pound the train apart. Delaplane, our next spot, coming down the road. There's the depot. Great room back there. Delaplane today is now called Cherry Blossom Road, and that's the Toyota plant back here. Bunch of auto racks back in here. This is a triple decker, which is unusual. Most of these are double deck. They hold 2 levels of cars. This would hold 3 levels of cars. Another view back in, and this is a blue flag. Anything you see a blue sign, a blue light, a blue anything, it means you are not allowed to go past that until the person who planted it or the person whose craft put it there removes it. You violate a blue flag and you are gone. Nobody will stand up for you. I was out in Western Kentucky with the Paducah and Louisville, and we went up to pick up a car. I've done some cab rides along the way. And somebody laid a blue jacket over the coupler, and they refused to couple onto it. And the people at the plant came over and removed it. And they said, we don't know who put it there. They said, you really think so? Yeah, we think manager would do something like that just to get us fired. And they refused to pick it up. They came back the next day and got it. blue flag protection. The other side of the road is there a container yard, double stacks here. There are containers stacked up here. The Lexington yard is now gone and everything's now up here. Mentioned that. Train of double stacks getting ready to move out. Georgetown coming down. Okay. This is the Frankfort and Cincinnati Railroad coming across here. Built in the 1880s as the Kentucky Midland. It was supposed to run from Frankfort to Paintsville and Pikeville. It never got past Paris. Sold at auction, bought by the Frankfort and Cincinnati, who never built another foot of rail. Coming in from here is the Louisville Southern that ran from Louisville to Lawrenceburg to Versailles on to Lexington, but a branch line came up to Georgetown. We got a Y here. And was supposed to compete with the L&N short line. It was too long and they couldn't do it. Coming down here is the Kentucky Traction and Terminal and an interurban line. Interurbans are streetcars on steroids. Think commuter rail. The Chicago, South Shore, and South Bend is really the only interurban line left in the country. But the depot was here. There was, let me back up here, an oil refinery. Kentucky in the 1920s hit oil big time up in eastern Kentucky. Some of the best oil that was ever found. Oil refineries here at Lexington on New Circle Road. If you go where the oil tanks are, there was one at Texcola, still part of it stands. There was one in Allen, Kentucky, some other places. The oil was shallow field. It was soon gone and everything closed down. This place was scrapped out, should put this, in the World War II. So there's really nothing left. This is a fireless steam locomotive. You would fill it up back here with steam, run it for a while, then make sure you got back and fill it up again with steam. So you had no fire because you're running around where all this oil and gasoline is. We're at the Georgetown Depot. Our water tank tower. The depot was about a mile from downtown. The F&C came through. At first they had their own depot, then they began to use the Georgetown Depot. Frankfort and Cincinnati Locomotive Crossing. It was known as the Bourbon Route. It had this on one of the locomotives for about 2 days. The owners, the Pilsen, found out about it and said, take it off the side of the depot. Another view where the depot was. A lot of these depots that were located outside of town would get a small downtown around them. And this was the streetcar that ran from the depot into town. There it is coming up, and standing in back where the photographer was would be the courthouse. Georgetown College is right off the right of where the streetcar is. Donorail coming on down. My wife had a fit when I drove up here, but I explained to her it was four-wheel, and I know there's no road coming up here, but we can drive over the field. What the heck, right? Right. So we drove there. There is the depot with our derrick back there. And we drove up and over the field and got here. Actually, the depot was on the other side of the road. Over here is Bourbon Stockyard, and beyond that is the Kentucky Horse Park. If you would like some good food, stop at the Bourbon Stockyard. They got a very nice little restaurant in there. I'm serious about that. But anyway, we got up there and got our picture of a stock train. 27 overpass. Coming down is the Kentucky Traction and Terminal. It crossed the CNO&TP. There's this famous postcard picture. Hey, you want us to get killed? I finally pulled the car off and walked up and took my picture. Too cold to hang around and wait for a train. Shame on me. Anyway, coming into Lexington. Aha! If you haven't guessed by now, Q&C was the Queen and Crescent. It and 4 railroads put a passenger line through that ran from the Queen City, Cincinnati, to the Crescent City, New Orleans. And there we are in Lexington. Hillenmeyer. I don't know if any of these are old enough. Remember Father Hillenmeyer at St. Thomas, Victor General of the Diocese of Covington. When the bishop died, he would step in and be the bishop till the new bishop was appointed. Father Hillenmeyer, that was where he was from. Down here we got, well, let me flip on the next one. It's a little bit better. This is the CNO&TP coming down from Cincinnati running south. The Chesapeake and Ohio came in from Ashland through Winchester into Lexington, cut up and around like this and did a connection with the CNO&TP. It also connected here with the Louisville, Nashville. The depot was down here. The Union Depot, Southern Depot's over here. This was Louisville, Nashville track coming up through here to Frankfort and Louisville. This is Louisville Southern track coming in. Remember I said it came from Louisville to Lawrenceburg to Versailles, where it split. One line going to Georgetown, the other line coming over here to Lexington. This is now Norfolk Southern coming down. The CNO track from Lexington to Ashland is gone, but the belt line remained in. This is now operated by R.J. Corman. This track here is operated by R.J. Corman from Winchester to Louisville, the former L&N, and the former Louisville Southern track is operated by R.J. Corman, and this is their yard here. Rupp Arena is about right there. R.J. Corman F unit and Norfolk Southern F unit crossing each other. This then went down to work the dinner train at Bardstown, and this was retired, and now they got, I forget what Norfolk Southern uses up here. Mr. Corman bought himself a steam locomotive. R.J. Corman, Rick Corman. Rick Corman was from Nicholasville, Kentucky. They passed him out of high school to get rid of him. He borrowed some money from a bank, bought himself a dump truck, a trailer, and a backhoe, and went in business. He died in 2013, I think it was, worth something like $350 million. He got bone cancer around the year 2000, went up to Johns Hopkins University med school and said, when I walk through the door on January 1st, I will hand you $1 million. And they kept him alive for about 12 years. First of January, he'd walk through, give him $1 million, and they would try some new experimental drug on him. I saw him right before he died, spoke to him. He was still all there, but it was a hot July day, and he had on a heavy winter coat, and I said, his system is breaking down. Oh, back to the locomotive. Anyway, it's a Chinese-built locomotive, a J. They brought it in through New Orleans, put it on the track, fired it up, and it worked, and they brought it up to Lexington. However, the Federal Railroad Administration said he had to make some changes to it, and it was 2 years before it actually ran in service. It only has a 17-year life. Diesels are inspected by the federal government, but they can run forever. Steam locomotives have a 17-year life, and then you got to take them down and prove that the boiler's still good. A major problem with steam locomotives. You're always rebuilding them. There's the Lexington Depot over here with the Lexington Yard here. Here's a close-up of the depot. It's out of town. The omnibus take it in town. A picture, a drawing of the depot. We are a Jim Crow state. Never forget that Kentucky's a Jim Crow state. So we got a white waiting room and a colored waiting room. What I find interesting is for the whites to go to the bathroom, they had to go through the colored waiting room. Here's the colored men's and women's. You will often see in some pictures 2 outhouses at a depot. They are not for the ladies and males. One's white and one's black. African American, sorry. Our Royal Palm coming in to the depot. Aha. Well, in 1971, I guess you all know the railroads got out of business of passenger trains. The last one ran on May 30th, I believe it is. March, because Amtrak starts up in April, if I remember correctly. Remembering isn't always good. Anyway, they were going to convert the depot into a restaurant. It didn't quite work. So they were going to turn it into a shelter, which didn't quite work. And as they were converting it into a shelter, it accidentally burnt down. Whoa. This is the replacement depot that came in. The Susquehanna locomotives came in for rebuilding by R.J. Corman. Their yard's over here. This is it today. That's gone. The yard's gone, and everything's been moved up to Del Plain. I had to throw this in. The internet of the day is a postcard. You can print postcards and mail them out, and they get them wherever you wanted them within 24 to 48 hours, thanks to the Railroad Postal Service. Anyway, up to the right is the Loudon Street streetcar boy. The guy picked up his streetcar, came down, and said, "Hey, my brakes aren't working," called it back. They said, "Well, go on out to the depot, pick up your load, and come back." Anybody know where Rupp Arena is and the road that comes down? It's, I'd say a 14% grade at least. Anyway, he gets to the top of the hill, starts to come down. The Chesapeake and Ohio FFV, no, not First Families of Virginia, the Fast Flying Virginia, is pulling in. The depot brake, the streetcar brakes don't work. It comes straight down the hill, hits the side of the Railway Express car and RPO car. There's the catcher for grabbing the mail. Smashes into it. I forget how many were killed. People were injured here. And it was the big thing of the day. And everybody gathers around to see it. By the way, remember Al cigars if you're of a certain age? But anyway, I had to stick that in. Queen and Crescent route going down to New Orleans from Cincinnati. I'm almost at the end. A little operation talk. See tracks, think trains. Remember, trains can't stop quickly. You can. Don't try to race a train. Expect a train at any time from any direction. And I will tell a quick little story. I was riding another Paducah Louisville train. We were running light, 2 locomotives, nothing else. And we're coming up on this crossing. And these 2 guys decide to beat across the crossing. The gates are down and they whip around the crossing and they crashed into each other. Oh, well. Anyway, see you trackside standing in the clear. I hope you enjoyed my little talk. And I will turn it back over to Mary Jane and her helper. And I will do my stop share.
For more Northern Kentucky history throughout the week, check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, where you can find the latest Curators Chat, along with all of our past Northern Kentucky History Hour presentations. Please like and subscribe. That's all we have time for this evening. Thank you
Mary
again.
Jane,
Yes.
before you hang up, I forgot to say something.
Oh, please let us know.
If you guys go on the internet and type in Cincinnati Railroad Club, they have 2 cameras in the Cincinnati Union Terminal. One looks at Guest Street Yard, one looks at Queensgate Yard. So 24 hours a day, you can sit there and watch train action in those 2 yards, free of charge. Cincinnati Railroad Club, check it out.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. And that's going to be all that we have time for tonight. So thank you to all of our sponsors and supporters. Until next time, take care, everyone, and good night. Thanks again, Charles. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.